All right, welcome back to the Mental Health Entrepreneur Podcast. I'm your host, Rachel Harrison, and today I am excited to introduce to you our guest, Crysta Harris. We are going to have a conversation with Crysta and learn more about what she is all about, but she is also the founder of the Black and Brown Delaware Therapist Directory, which I'm super excited to dig into. So, welcome, Crysta.
Hello, welcome. Well, I'm glad to be here, I should say.
You can welcome people too. That sounds appropriate. So, tell everybody a little bit about yourself. Maybe your story, how you became a therapist, mental health therapist.
Sure. So, as you said, my name is Crysta Harris. I am a licensed therapist here in the state of Delaware. I currently am the owner of Crysta Harris and Associates, a private practice at the moment, 100% virtual, where I work with Black and Brown women.
Mm-hmm.
And my areas of expertise and what I specialize in is anxiety, depression, and working with women with trauma. In addition to another branch that I have added on is working with women who have challenges with perinatal mood disorders, such
Mm.
as any um any challenges like after or during birth. So whether that's anxiety, depression, trauma, OCD, things of that nature. So I do work with a lot of women who are having those challenges. Um, Go ahead.
Yeah, I was going to
Um,
say, so how did you decide to work in mental health? What got you
yes.
there?
So, I always tell people, to me, there's like a few different options. Option A is like, oh my goodness, I just love helping people. Option B is something traumatic, something challenging has happened, or I need it to be, or somebody needs to be like a safe space when they were younger, or there's a mix of the two. So I go with there's a mix of the two.
Mm-hmm.
So yes, I do like helping people, but I do think growing up, um, I don't think there were always spaces for me to communicate feelings or even be able to identify those feelings. And I think I needed people to kind of like let me know it was okay to communicate, or let me know it is okay to share these feelings, or it is okay just for me to say when I'm not okay.
Mm-hmm.
And so I think that, coupled with a lot of trauma, I think within my family dynamic, such as my mom not being present, my dad not being present, me kind of being separated from my siblings, um, and being raised by my grandmother, that was a lot, I think, for a child and a teenager to handle, and I didn't have any outlets. And so that all is what encouraged me and influenced me to be a therapist. I actually started working with children when I first started, 8, almost 9 years ago. I started working with children,
Mm.
and teenagers, families, and then I transitioned.
Yeah, and I know you also identify yourself as an entrepreneur, so I'm curious about that piece too. What has your entrepreneur journey been like?
Oh, the journey. I will say it's funny because I don't know if you realize, but on Facebook, anytime you write things, once the anniversary passes, it pops up on your timeline.
Oh,
And
yeah, yeah.
yes, right. So you're always reminded of things. And I remember saying, like, and telling my supervisors that I didn't want to do my own thing. I didn't want to be an entrepreneur. I was perfectly fine. But I think the reason why I was saying that was because of fear, was because I would just didn't know what to expect. So I think when sometimes people don't know what to expect, or they're scared or fearful of something, they say they don't want to do it. And I think
Hmm.
that is what occurred. In addition to, I just felt like being able to not just be my own boss, but being able to like set my rules, being able to see the people that I feel like really connect and align with my goal and my purpose. I think was what really influenced me. It's like me being able to kind of like touch the people that I know are aligned with what like God has given me to like give.
Yeah, so that sense of purpose is kind of what launched you into the entrepreneur journey.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Absolutely.
I totally resonate with that for myself too. It has to be a cause that I fully believe in, right? Not business just for business sake, but
Correct.
for something that matters and means something and feels valuable to me.
Correct.
Yeah.
Correct. And I think when you do move based on purpose and passion, um, I think you just amazing things blossom by staying focused to who you are and what you believe you're supposed to like give into the world.
Yeah. So, what is that for you? What are you supposed to give into the world?
I think that's funny because somebody was just talking to me about that. I think uh one of like my things are I think just the ability to let people know that they can do it, and that even if they look like me, meaning, you know, an African American woman, um, who may not come from the best, you know, environment or family dynamic or what have you, or if any obstacles thrown your way, that you can absolutely do it.
Mm,
It may be difficult, but you can absolutely do it. And I think when people look at me and they speak to me or they're my clients, then you automatically leave with that. I think
yeah.
that's like one of my
So,
superpowers.
yeah, is that part of your passion for working with? It sounds like you work with a lot of African American women specifically.
Yes. And that's it's just part of it is because, you know, me working with black and brown women, it's just I think sometimes a connection that is already formed and sometimes we don't even have to say anything.
Yes.
And that I think has been like I said, it's been my superpower. And I think that's something that anybody you talk to about me will absolutely probably say that.
Mm, wow. I love that. I really do. But I want to dive into that for
Mhm,
people that are listening. So, what is that connection? What is that level of understanding? What makes that like maybe an immediate safer space?
mhm. I think when, like I said, even though I'm 100% virtual, but even when I was also in person pre COVID, I think when you come into therapy or sometimes a situation, depending on what it is, you come in there with nerves, you come in there
Yeah,
with anxiety, you come in there
definitely.
with what ifs, come in there with it. Well, let me just say certain things so I won't be looked at a certain way or judged or things of that nature. And so I think when you sit across from a person, it's more than just, it is definitely what a person that looks like you, right? But I think when you see the person that looks like you, in addition to saying, wait, this person will be able to kind of understand some of the things that I may not even say. They may be able to understand my vernacular. They're going to understand my head nods. They're going to understand my rolling of the eyes. They're going to understand certain things. And it makes it less worrisome. It makes it less anxious feel, and then when you're able to do that, the barriers and the walls start to come down. And I think that's like very much important um, when building that relationship and building that trusting dynamic.
Which is why I think what you're doing for people is so important to this idea of mental wellness in our communities because you're really talking about a lot of unspoken things
Hmm.
that
Hmm.
help create safety for people. And
Correct.
if people aren't safe, they can't get well. It's just not going to happen. And it doesn't mean that a therapist that might not look the same as a client can't help somebody. Certainly, there are all different kinds of healing situations that are appropriate, but I think you have hit on something that is really critical here. And so I'm jumping ahead a little bit, but I
Hmm.
would love to know the story of how the Black and Brown Delaware Therapist Directory got started.
Of course. So I'm a big person about definitely hard work, prayer, and also manifestations. um,
Mm.
very big. Again, anybody you meet will tell you that. And I had this idea of creating a directory years ago, but it wasn't the right time. I think I was pregnant with my son at the time, so it just wasn't the time. But I had the idea,
Mm.
and then but I it wasn't clear. It was just this was the idea I had, but it wasn't fully clear. And then COVID-19 hit us like a bag of bricks.
Okay.
And then we also had other traumatic things happen with George Floyd and Breonna Taylor and things of that nature, left and right and left
Yeah.
and right. And then, as you know, Black and Brown people were um, heavily impacted, more impacted. And I kept seeing people say, "How do I find a therapist?"
Mm.
People for the first time, how do I find a therapist? Where do I find a black and brown? Where do I find a black therapist? Where do I find a black male therapist? How
Mm-hmm.
do I find a person? Because I think at that time, you just needed to talk to somebody, right?
Yeah.
After being in the house, after seeing the images on the news, after seeing all of those things and hearing up all those things, in addition to wondering if you're going to be okay, like if you're going to make it to the next week, right? And when the more I kept seeing it, I said, I'm going to create the directory. The idea that I had years prior, oh, this was the time that I was supposed to do it. And that is what, and that snowballed into the Black, Brown, Delaware Therapist Directory, because I wanted people, right? Anybody can use the directory. But I wanted people to be able to find a therapist that looks like them. So you won't have to keep asking the question, how do I find a therapist? I wanted the process to be very easy, very seamless. You log on and then bam, you see Black and brown therapists right there in front of you that are willing and wanting to be able to see you.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. And so, how has that grown over time?
So we celebrated our third birthday, November 16th.
Awesome.
Yes,
Congratulations.
thank you. So we have over 20 providers on the directory. We have Spanish speaking providers on the directory. It has grown into a partnership with it's the perinatal group that works with mothers
Hmm.
um, and providing sponsor scholarships to individuals to take training in perinatal mood disorders. We just received a grant a couple of weeks ago to help continue to further directory. So we've been doing good. We've won a couple of awards, actually. I forgot about that.
Woo!
Yes. I was honored I think October, November it was last year. And then we also won an award just for the impact that the directory is doing back in 2023 or 2022, I believe. So we are doing great things and we are definitely helping people connect with a therapist and just to get help, just to be seen and just to be heard.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yeah. Do you find that you can meet the need in terms of the people that are logging on and looking for somebody? Because I know it can be difficult to find a therapist with openings and all of those things.
So I think the more that I always want to know and ask myself, what else can I do? Right? Without being exhausted. But I do that is a question that I ask myself, what else can we do? And so I try to be in the present moment and say, listen, the 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 directory right now is serving its purpose. I do hope it does grow even bigger so that we can, you know, reach even more. One of my major goals for the directory, is to also connect more with resources in Sussex County, just so that,
Hmm.
again, anywhere you are, you can be able to say, okay, I want to connect with this therapist because they're here in Dover, they're here in Sussex, they're here in Wilmington or Newcastle. And that's one of the biggest goals. It's just for as many providers that I can get on the directory.
Yeah, that makes sense. I mean, and then that meets the most needs both ways.
Absolutely.
It's
Absolutely.
providers are getting the clients that they are hoping, hopefully, are a good match for them, and
Absolutely.
then also clients are finding that. That's
Absolutely.
fantastic.
And to that point, and it's more too than just the providers getting the clients too. It's also to showcase and let others know that there are providers here in Delaware, because I'm sure you already know there's only 3% of Black therapists that are represented, right? And so,
Yeah.
you know, the directory also serves as a platform where therapists can be highlighted, where their skills are highlighted, whether that's for speaking engagements, whether that's,
Hmm.
for therapy, whether that's to lead trainings and things of that nature. So it's also used to market their skills, their competency, and things of that nature.
Okay, I like that. I like that. Do you ever anticipate expanding beyond Delaware?
Everybody always asks that.
Do they? I know, it was top of
They
mind.
do. They
Yeah.
do. They do. I am a person who does take things one step at a time. I think before it's possibly expanding, I plan to open it up to nurse practitioners, because
Ah,
as we know, like I like to treat the whole person, right? And so
yes.
sometimes people are saying also, oh my goodness, how do I find a doctor? How do I get a primary care physician? I don't know where to go. And so I think before
Mm,
thinking about other states, I just want to make sure that I'm doing all that I can do and need to do for Delaware in this directory.
yeah.
So that's the next step, actually, to open it up to primary care physician.
Hmm. Hmm. I, it resonates for me at the very beginning of you talking. You were talking about you needing to find a space to share your feelings, a safe space to share your feelings. And then I think it's maybe no accident that you're creating this safe space for Black and brown people to find
Hmm.
as well. I'm
Hmm.
curious, were you able to find that when you were looking for it?
Oh, that's a good question. Yes. So, but it took a long time. And
Mm,
it took it took different situations to say, hey,
hmm.
you really do need your space. I don't know if I shared this before, but one situation, I was in grad school and we were doing a genogram. And for anybody listening that doesn't know what that is, it's like a family map,
Yeah.
basically. And as I was like standing in front of the class, my first year of grad school, I'm explaining the family dynamic, and I literally am bawling in front of the class. And I'm like, okay, this is weird. What are you doing? After I
Mm,
was finished, I got A on the project. But I was like, what is that about? Like, what are you doing? And that's, I realized, like, oh, you need to talk with someone. Like, you need to literally clear out some things that you clearly have been pushing and suppressing. And so, with time and other situations, I have secured and found a great therapist. Because, like I tell everybody, all therapists need a therapist too.
yeah, agreed.
And just like I tell everybody too, nothing has to be wrong either for you to see someone.
Hmm.
Like I tell my clients, it's better to, like, if you stay ready, you don't have to get ready, right? And also use the swimming example, right?
Mm,
If you jump in and you're panicking, you can't get help, right? You can't listen to what people are telling you to try to save yourself if you just are in panic. But if you jump in calmly and you are, listening to the person and you're calm, you're able to kind of learn how to swim versus drowning.
love that. Yeah, yeah. That's good to know. And I don't know. Maybe those are connected for you. Maybe they weren't. They just connected in my story.
Oh,
That
absolutely. Oh no, they
yeah.
absolutely connect. I was even a peer therapist in college. So
Ah.
yes. So I started off as a counselor for it didn't no, everything connects for me. Trust me. You didn't do that by accident. Everything connects. I started off as a counselor, for my first job at 14. Then I transitioned in working with college students, actually at the University of Delaware, and being an academic advisor slash counselor for them. Transitioned into working with Upward Bound. Any role that I had has been in the helping field.
Hmm.
College, I was a peer counselor, and then transitioned into license, pre-license, and licensed therapy.
Yeah. Yeah.
Everything connected.
It does, right? So, other than sort of solidifying this directory, is there anything else that's next for you?
I would say continuing to expand the directory, but and continuing to expand Crysta Harris Associates. The goal is to have more therapists and just continue to build the team here at my practice, and continuing to be able to provide the necessary resources, as I've taken trainings in EMDR. So my goal is to continue um, trainings in that area so that I can be stronger and to really um, hone in on the women that I see in addition to trauma that they sometimes don't even realize has been traumatic. So I kind of really want to marry those two within my practice.
I love that. It's definitely something close to my heart as well.
I know.
I know you know. Are there what would you tell? I'm just curious. Maybe a last word to someone who is thinking of an idea on the entrepreneur side, especially if it's something that benefits others in mental wellness. What would your advice be?
What would my advice be? I would say, being an entrepreneur it definitely has its positives, but it is challenging, right? And I think with being an entrepreneur, and I think sometimes comes creativity with that and things of that nature. I think it's very important to make sure that yes, you are working and doing things that you need, but you also separate the two because I think sometimes, especially me, and when I look at my calendar, I make my assistant know, like, okay, don't let me schedule during my lunch. And sometimes I'll do it and don't let me schedule after this time. And I'm like, and she's like, you're doing it again. And so I think really having those boundaries
Hmm.
are really important because that is going to also be important in your private life, right? That's going to be important in your relationships. And I think the more you practice that, the stronger you will be in setting boundaries. And I think in business, it's very important
Yeah.
because burnout is it's very much serious.
Yeah.
And I think boundaries help with that. Our field can be it's definitely rewarding, but it can be heavy at times. And if you
Yeah.
don't take care of yourself and if you don't set those necessary boundaries, then burnout happens.
Yeah. I like to think of it as the long haul. I tell people, like, okay, maybe this is working right now, but can we
Is this
endure this for
sustainable?
a long time, right?
Is
Because
this
that's what we're
sustainable?
in it for. Yeah. Yeah.
That's what I asked is this sustainable?
Mm-hmm. Right.
I think the boundaries is something that I would definitely tell people to incorporate within their business. I know we want to like go, 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 but again, that is going to burn out after a while.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Well, this has been such a great conversation. I love what you're doing with the directory, and we'll have all the information in the show notes for anybody
Yes.
that wants to check out Krista and get more information on this. But thank you so much for being here.
Yeah, no, thank you for the invitation and just having this platform and letting me speak about a little bit about myself and the directory.
You're welcome.